Once again, this is Otherworldly Fundraising. Our fundraising efforts are benefiting one simple wish. Link to donate is located within the description. Please welcome Manamana himself, an artiste to the extraordinaire. Guy Gilchrist is here. Hello, Guy Gilchrist.
Hello.
How are you?
I am doing great, thank you. I draw a pig, a frog, and a bear. I'm doing good all the time, right?
Mm. Yeah, you absolutely are. And you know what? I've just been handed a note here. Our moderator is in fact in the building, so I'm going to turn things over to that individual. But Guy, it was nice meeting you for although a brief period.
Thank
Our
you.
moderator's in the building. Trevor, take it away, my man. What do you got?
Hey, good afternoon. Hello, Guy.
Hey, Trevor.
It's good to have you here today, and it's good to see you. And I am going to chat with you for this hour in a bit of the artist perspective. And I have questions, and you're free to talk about anything you want to talk about, and then
I
we'll have
may have
questions.
answers. I'm glad you
Well,
have questions.
I have plenty of questions, plenty of questions.
All right.
But okay, so what are your earliest memories about making art when you were
Hmm.
small?
Um, my mom would take me to the diner. I was really little. She would take me to the diner where she worked, and we lived in a tiny, tiny little almost town called Winstead, Connecticut, and this was been late 50s. So she would take me to the diner with her, and she would open up the newspaper to the funnies, and she would say, here, Guy, draw this. And that was her way of not getting fired and, keeping me busy. That was what we called childcare back in the day. And I realized very, very early on that I could take nothing, a piece of paper and a pencil that basically, and the newspaper was free, and make somebody happy and get noticed in a nice way.
Very, very good. Very good. And following up on that, and you're answering that a little bit with what you said was what influenced your art early on and what influences your art today?
Hmm. Well, probably, well, today, okay, we'll do the then. So then, uh, of course, I would be, I would be copying everything. Uh, and I found out that I was better at drawing like cute things and funny animals rather than like Superman and things like that. Of course, the newspaper, didn't really have a lot of superhero stuff in it. It mostly, it had, High and Lois and Snoopy and stuff. Anyway, I was very influenced immediately by the funny animal comic that I saw in the paper, Pogo, by Walt
That's good.
Kelly. And he's always been an influence on me. I have several pieces of his original art. I very much marvel at him. Uh, and I hope that I can someday be like him. Uh, anyway, he was a huge influence. And then another Walter Lance, was a huge influence on me. Uh, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, weekdays, my mother would walk me across the street because I was so little, over to the appliance store, and the Woody Woodpecker show would be on. And Walter, and you can still watch these sequences, by the way, on YouTube and stuff. Walter would come on before he would show Woody Woodpecker and Chilly Willy and all of the Andy Panda and stuff. And he would draw with you and show you behind the scenes and that kind of stuff. And I believe that he was talking to me. He was a huge influence on me. He had a coloring book that was called Easy Way to Draw, that taught you how to draw Woody Woodpecker and Friends, but also you could make a diorama. He showed you how to draw cartoon jalopies, cartoon airplanes, all of that kind of stuff. 1 point and 2 point perspective. It was a really, really neat thing. It was so beloved around the world that in England it was printed out as a hardcover book back in those days, 58 or 59, whatever it was. And anyway, so he was a huge, huge influence on me. And when I was 10 years old, I took a whole pile of my artwork I had drawn for about a month after Walter had been a guest on an afternoon talk show called the Art Linkletter Show. And Art Linkletter would always have an address where you could write to them, send them funny stories and stuff. So I now had an address for Walter Lantz, and so I piled as much nice art as I could into the mail. And wouldn't you know it, the world's most famous animator wrote this nobody back at 10 years old. And, I got this glorious, glorious, it had come out of the Ark of the Covenant. It was so gorgeous. This pure white with this incredible gold leaf and stuff and full color Woody Woodpecker on a white horse with this lance all embossed. Walter Lantz production, Seward Street, Hollywood, California, with big sunset in the back. And it said, "Dear Guy, you have a lot of talent for a 10-year-old boy. And I'm sure that if you keep on practicing and you never ever quit, someday you will be a successful cartoonist. Sincerely, Walter Lantz," actually really signed. And, it wasn't very many years later, like, 2 or 3, that there I was, very innocently trying to make it, really starting to try to make it. So Walter was a huge influence on me. Those are the famous people, that people know. My mother, of course, was a great influence on me growing up. And there was a man named Ray Callahan who had an art department in the school system, in the West Hartford school system in Connecticut. And it was called the graphics department. And they did all of the artwork and AV work and everything like that for all the schools in Connecticut, in that area of Connecticut. And he allowed me to work for him for art supplies. And so I learned an awful lot from him at a very early age as to approximate becoming a professional, or at least an apprentice at a professional's agency. Then as far as the people that are influential to me now, there are many, many people out there that I really love, new people and stuff, but I wouldn't call them inspiring, except that they're inspiring in that it gives me a great feeling that there's wonderful stuff out there and that there's wonderful stuff being made, but I truly believe that just like in your musical tastes, by the time you're around 12 or 13 or 14, your tastes have cemented. That music that you were listening to at that period is the greatest music ever made. And you might fall in love with Sinatra, or you might fall in love with somebody more modern now, or, in different eras, but your era will always be your era. And that is absolutely true, for me. In that Kelly is still a huge influence. Arthur Rackham, the British illustrator, a huge influence to me. Howard Pyle is a huge influence for me. All the Disney guys, Freddie Moore, Carl Barks, et cetera, all the Disney guys. I love them. Maxfield Parrish. I've done a lot of children's books and stuff, and I never had formal training. And so there's an awful lot of art that I dissected and was helped with to achieve whatever I have now. And so, I think that my style, my head, my voice, all of that, my look is sort of a combination of all those guys.
That's most excellent. Nothing, everyone's influenced by something, and definitely it's a good thing to pull them all through your filter, and then you do and express what you've got, and it's a wonderful thing as well.
Yeah, I think
So
I think that's what style is. I think style is a combination of, what you know and what you don't know, and of course, what you know is all the stuff that you've fallen in love with, and the people that you're practicing with, and and learning from, and all of that. And then, of course, then there's the what you don't know yet. You know, so hopefully your style keeps evolving. Certainly, I have a style. People, that know my style. However, my style has changed, a lot over the years, and I've been able to, jump into a bunch of sort of, different vibes and things, depending on the story that I'm trying to tell. Another huge influence, I have to say, artistically, was, when I was, working with Jim Henson. Michael K. Frith, is like the greatest art director that ever lived, uh, and an absolutely huge influence on me. When I was doing the Muppets, Michael was my teacher, and my day to day, you know, mind blown. Couldn't believe that anybody could draw like that and articulate art the way that he did. So, God bless Michael.
that's excellent. And what point in life were you at when you finally felt, or the click was, I'm going to do this for my living, or I
Oh,
want, yeah.
always. There was never. I came out of the womb. I had already made my mind. There was never. I never thought really of anything else except to be Elvis. And who doesn't want to be Elvis?
I agree. Agreed. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you'd like to write a song like Hank Williams and everything, but everybody wants to be Elvis. So, I did want to be Elvis, and, I learned my chords and all of that stuff and wrote songs, I, but I discovered the guitar by the time I was 9 or 10. But by 9 or 10, I was fully committed. My mother always says it's all you ever talked about. And it wasn't just, I'm going to be a cartoonist. It's like, I'm going to be a famous cartoonist, like Walter Lantz. I'll go to work for Walter Lantz, and then I'll have a big studio like Walter Lantz, and I'll make people happy, like, that kind of thing. And so it was always, always, always. And it was always, this is how I'm going to make my living. When I would get jobs while I was still in high school for money, besides drawing, it would always be money to enable me to get where I needed to be and get the equipment, the supplies, et cetera, to be who I wanted to be. There was never a question.
That's
Always.
wonderful.
No, yeah, no plan B.
No plan B. That's
No, none.
and I love that the spark hit you early
Oh yeah,
and
and
strong.
and and I guess I've already stressed that I was going to do this for money. Like, I understood very early on that, you were on the TV, you were in a book, you were in the newspaper. And it's funny, that's what I became, all of that stuff.
That, I mean, sometimes, there's that old expression, do what you love and the money will follow. And it's like, sometimes maybe you should think about the money first as well.
Well, it wasn't, it wasn't that. It was, uh, the I had a really lousy family life, but it wasn't like this horrible thing. It wasn't in my mind. It wasn't that. It was. I was always, from the time probably 5 or 6 years old. My mom told me I'm leaving. I would tell her that. I'm leaving, and this was my vehicle. This was my vehicle. I was always independent, always wanted to be, on my own doing this. And so I always had that head, uh, that you knew you had to do something. And this was what I was going to be really good at.
Very, very good. So, what was your first published piece? You
Hmm.
remember?
I kind of don't. I guess it depends on your term of published, but
Well, anything that was reproduced,
okay.
taken and reproduced,
Yeah. Well, I think that probably when I was in around fourth or fifth grade, I won a statewide, like, sort of government thing where you drew something, and it was a contest that was statewide in Connecticut. And you drew a cartoon of something, the environment, something like that. You came up with something that had to do with the world and politics, and I'm not a politics guy, so it was probably something about pollution or something. And I don't actually remember the drawing. I do know that I won
winning is
and
important.
got the certificate, and so that was printed in the newspaper, although I never saw it,
Oh,
but it was printed there, and it was reprinted in some kind of, journal of, hey, look at all these kids that won, because each state had this thing, and it was sponsored by the U.S. House of Representatives or something like that. So that was a thing. However, really, really early on, when I was like, I mean, even earlier than that, like 7 or 8 years old, I would just say, if there was a plumber, I'd say, I'll draw your business card if you want, and I would draw a cartoon plumber, and so that would be printed. Always, I was always thinking about that. Even in like first grade and stuff, when I was, meet kids, I'd say, I'll draw a Woody Woodpecker or a Batman or whatever. Like on your notebook, you can give me your milk money. I was always doing it.
that's that's the way to go. That's entrepreneurship for sure. Well, now I'm going to ask you the question that you probably get asked the most, and I hope it doesn't strike as too much, but tell us about your work with the Muppets.
Uh, well, I auditioned for Jim when I was 23. And, uh, I always think this is a very old story about how I got there and all of that. Um, Maybe I'll just cut for this point to actually working with, Jim, and what the audition process was like, because it's sort of a long story how I got there.
Well,
But I did get there, and I auditioned for King Features, not for Jim, but for King Features. And Bill Yates really liked what I had done. This, by the way, guys, there was a comic strip. See, we used to like, there were these things called newspapers, and we used to slice trees really, really thin, print bad news on one side, ball scores on funnies on the other side. I was on the side with the funnies and the ball scores. Um, anyway, so Jim had a 2-year search to find someone, and I've heard that there were 200 people that were considered. Anyway, I auditioned through King Features. Bill Yates, the head of King Features, liked what I did, and eventually, so I kept on drawing and writing. After Bill liked it, eventually, about a month later, he kept asking me, hey, can you send me a few more gags. And so I did that for a couple of weeks, and then I was invited over to 117 East 69th. That was Jim's brownstone, the Muppet Central. The basement was the Muppet Workshop. Of course, there was also a Muppet Creature Shop and everything over in London, but Jim's center of business was in New York at 117 East 69th. I went over there, and it was like I was in the Emerald City. I was in Valhalla, whatever you want to call it. And I was never going to leave. And, I would have to be escorted out. And I met Michael Frith. It was the most opulent and silly place I'd ever been, all at once. It was incredibly beautiful and and mind-blowingly artistic and just exquisite. And I wanted to be a part of that. And this is where this was going to be my new home. And I decided, and then they were very non-committal, very nice. Said, nice things, made some comments about things I could do better. This was early on. But I walked out of there saying, I'm going to be this person. I'm going to be Jim Henson's Muppets cartoonist, just to me. And I would probably, sound like a complete fool had it not happened. Uh, I went home and just kept drawing it, just deciding that until I got word otherwise, that they had hired someone else, I was going to give it every shot I had. I was doing a comic book at the time for Weekly Reader, and I was well paid for that. And I loved doing it. It was called Super Colonel Comics, and I was doing joke books and game books and stuff like that with Weekly Reader, and also trying to get a leg in, somehow a foot in the door of children's books and stuff. But I wanted to be a syndicated cartoonist. King Features was a dream that everyone that I knew had, and I was a giant Muppets fan. Anyway, I kept writing and drawing stuff with not much advice given or anything. I just kept doing it. And then after about 10 months, 11 months, something like that, the phone rang and it was Jerry Jewell, Jim's head writer, and I got the job. And so I sat there in my little studio made in my garage in Connecticut, acting like, every dream you've ever had comes true every day. And now try to pretend you're an adult. There's that moment. But also you have to realize that, okay, you have the job and here we go. And so I pretended to be an adult with Jerry for about an hour. And then I got off the phone and went nuts. And then it hits you. Wow. Wow. And there's no way I could have ever been ready. No one could be ready. Um, about a month or so later, I met Jim. And Jim, then I really felt like, I had the job. And Jim was really into pogo. And so was I, and so was Michael. Jim thought that I drew a bit like Kelly and inked a little bit like him. And I'm sure that helped me get the job. And anyway, so we all just sort of started. And a lot of the jokes that I wrote on my own, and I had brought my brother in as a gag writer as well, my brother Brad, we, wound up using them. And but Jim was incredibly involved in the development of the strip and the daily strip for the first couple of years. It was incredible. It was every dream you've ever had on steroids, just mind-blowingly great. Also paralyzingly frightening. That you'd have 150 million people reading your stuff, every mistake you made. This was the only comic strip that there ever was in the history of comic strips that if you read, if you're in Atlanta, you're in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you were reading the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and you read my strip that day, then somebody in the Philippines was reading the exact same strip. Somebody in Helsinki was reading it. That never happened ever. And this is before computers or anything. So, and King Features said it couldn't be done. Jim wanted it to happen, and we made it happen. So the whole world was watching me grow up in front of them. And it was an incredible, incredible thrill ride. And it's not an overnight success or anything like that. I've been working for a long time, but it was overnight. I was now working on the most famous characters in the world with the greatest genius
Very
I will
cool.
ever meet. And so that's quite the shift in realities.
And well deserved. I think we have a question coming up. What Muppet is more like your personality?
Rolf the dog.
Rolf the dog.
Rolf the dog, yep. Although as I get older, it's probably Statler and Waldorf. Uh, but yeah, I think Rolf because uh, Rolf is fairly balanced, but nuts anyway, and he loves old show business. Likes to help, is trying to be helpful. Uh, can And so, yeah, and he was the very first Muppet that was famous. I don't know if people know that or not. Rolf was the first character that nationally had a name that wasn't, and so this was, people didn't know what Kermit's name was. And, famously, Kermit wasn't even a frog when things started out in 55. So Rolf was the first character that I ever met as a first generation Muppets fan. But yeah, and I think it's Rolf. When I think of Jim, certainly I think of Kermit, but I also think of Rolf.
Very good, very good. And before I ask you the next question, I definitely want to remind people watching, and thank you for your time for this wonderful fundraiser that we're doing for One Simple Wish. And you can just look at the things scrolling at the bottom of the screen to go ahead and, oh,
Mhm.
hey. And I'm sure Kermit
Mhm.
would be happy to throw some of his green on there.
Mhm.
But
Let's see some green, okay? Let's see some green, okay?
yeah, exactly. Woo. Anyway, okay, that Kermit's arm flail is one of my favorite ways to express stress and anxiety. There's even like a animated meme that I
Yeah,
just have,
yeah.
and I think wasn't Rolf Jim's favorite Muppet? Am I overstepping to think that he might have been? Because
Oh, I think that probably Jim would say what I always say. See, I don't have a favorite Muppet. I don't have a favorite anything. It's the one that you're working
working
on.
on,
It's the one that
yeah,
matters. I mean, certainly Kermit is the touchstone of the Muppets, and I'm sure if pressed, that would be Jim's alter ego. Certainly, Kermit was Jim's alter ego.
oh,
Uh,
definitely,
but I never heard him express except, uh, that of course Kermit was the central character. Um, And that's a question that I get asked all the time, like who's your favorite character to draw and all that. And honestly, um, we all have passion projects, which will always be near and dear to our heart. I've written many, many children's books with my own characters in them, and those were written for my own children. That was uh, the genesis of those. So they'll always be, the closest to me. But of the characters that I worked on, even that started out as somebody else's, and then I got a little, I got to be a part of that. Um, Whenever I'm working on any universe, whether it's the Muppets, the Babies, the Fraggles, all the Jim properties, or Looney Tunes, or Ninja Turtles, Tom and Jerry, Pink Panther, whatever it happens to be, I'm there in
right.
that moment. It's the only thing that matters. The baseball analogy of what's the most important pitch, the one coming up, whether you're the batter or the pitcher. You know, the grounder coming to you. The ball coming at you. The next play. It's like if you're thinking about the last play, you're gonna get beamed. You have to always, 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 always be in the moment. And the only important thing that you can do is do your very, very best in the moment. You know, when we go on these, when we chat like this, or I'm on the Comic-Con, speaking tour circuit. That's the Golden Oldies tour, which is a lovely, lovely tour to be on. And I liken it to if I went and saw the Eagles or something, like my favorite 70s band. They might have some new songs, and I want to hear those new songs, but I also want to hear the greatest hits.
Definitely.
And so when I do these cons and stuff, I have drawn and drawn and drawn and practiced and practiced and practiced and put out all kinds of brand new art of all of those characters and all those different universes, so that my way of rehearsing and practicing and giving the audience what they want. And so I stay in the now, in that way, making sure that I put my art director's hat on, in all of those universes, and I'm there. Um, but honestly, whatever I'm working on at that moment is just the only thing that matters. And then, then I get to hear if anything I've done mattered to you, and that's lovely when it does.
That's excellent. And I think we have a question. Have you seen the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie yet?
I have not. I will watch it probably, streaming or something. I'm looking forward to it. I've heard very, very good things about it, in that it sounds like, more comical than, some of the stuff has been lately. There was some like realistic stuff that just wasn't, it wasn't my kind of thing. But the very fact that I haven't seen it yet, look, I don't see like hardly anything of the stuff that I've worked on. I'm not like, chomping at the bit, because see, I've worked on it, and now I'm on to something else.
Yeah, you're done.
So,
Yeah.
but I'm always interested, and I will see it, and I do try to see everything that has to do with with a universe that I've been involved in, because when I chat, with folks, I like to actually have seen it, so that I can be where you're at.
Okay, another question. How did you get into drawing on guitars and ukuleles?
Oh, okay. Well, I moved down to Nashville almost 20 years ago now. And, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but, I'm very unsuccessful singer songwriter guy. Um, uh, I moved to Nashville, to play and write and all of that. And I've actually been able to do quite a bit. I've sung on the Grand Ole Opry a couple of times and had some records on the radio and that kind of thing. And one of the things that happens in Nashville, you're doing a charity event, let's say, and there's 6 or 12 of you. And at the end of it, or during it, or before it, or whatever, anyone that's performing at the gig is asked to sign the guitar, and then they auction it off, to make money for the event. Like we're supposed to be making money for the One Wish folks today. Anyway, but like George Brett used to say, man, every single time somebody asks you for an autograph, they want you to do your job, and I go, what do you mean? He goes, hey, when I sign my name, they're not asking me to hit a home run, but every time you sign your name, they expect you to draw Kermit, or what is one of your
Right.
characters? And that was the case. It was like they, give me a guitar. Well, anyway, so I, draw whatever, and then people would be bringing me guitars to just decorate the whole thing. And at one point or another, I said, these are like wood. I'll bet you I could paint on these. And so that was the genesis of it. Was me trying to figure out that surface and to start to do that stuff. These days, um, there's been this year especially, there's been a lot of focus, and it's really, really cool on my guitars and ukuleles and banjos and all of that kind of stuff, because we now have an actual store in Nashville that sells that stuff. And I do them frequently because we're at the airport, the Nashville airport. It's called Nashville Jam Session. It's with my friends Amy and John Billings. And anyway, I love, love, love doing that. And it's just this perfect, perfect marriage of what I love, art and music together.
Very good. Well, and that would segue into something. Yeah, I always had a question about how do you use your art to support causes you believe in, and you've mostly answered that already. But I'm sure there's other things you do with your art for certain charities and
Oh,
things.
sure.
And how how does that make you feel? And is that integral to kind of your life as a creative person?
Oh, well, I think it's incredibly important to me. Um, I could never feel right about keeping my my gifts to myself. The whole reason that I draw and write stuff is to make you happy and to entertain people, the people that care about it. Um, we don't publicize all of the different, stuff that we do. It's sort of blowing your own horn.
Right.
Uh, we've found, though, because there are so many fake people out there doing fake things, unfortunately, that on occasion we will post about once every 6 months or so, and we won't give numbers, but we'll say, because of you, we've been able to contribute to. And then I'll list a whole bunch of people. They're always children's charities. Um, and anytime you give to even a shelter, a homeless shelter, a woman's shelter, a veterans group, anything that you do, it affects children. And, uh, 20%, we do have a philosophy of 20% of everything that I make at Comic Cons and stuff like that goes to children's charities. Um, but uh, but we do quite a bit more. Uh, I'm never able to do as much as I would like. We're not able to, for instance, provide painted guitars, to everyone that asks for one. I just can't
Yeah.
do it. They take like 40 hours. I can't.
Yeah.
There are things that I can't do certain things, but anything that I can do and uh, to help, we do. Uh, we do support many different charities, all having to do with children, every single month. And then there are, different cases, that just sort of come up, and stuff that we do. And certainly a large part of the folks that help me out at the studio, I have two wonderful people on Team Guy at my little studio. Part of what they do every week is to, you know, it's beautiful, just like, that all the signed drawings and things like that we send out. Um, to me, um, the gifts that I have I've been given in order to give back to anyone who cares about them. Um, and, uh, and it's not even so much on a per project basis or anything like that. My whole life has been, you know, drawing and writing, whether you knew I was doing it or not. Some things are hits,
Yeah.
some things are flops, but you work hard on every single thing. And it's my belief that every single person in the world is born with many, many gifts. And as we have the desire in our hearts, these gifts appear to us. And the more that we play with these gifts, we contemplate these gifts, we learn about this gift that God gave us on the day that we were born. Um, if we continue to practice with the gift, eventually the gift is seen by your family and your friends, and then maybe by the whole world. Well, and so now what are you doing? You're giving back your gift. I believe that any help that we can be in service to our fellow man is part of that circle.
I definitely agree with that for sure. Um, oh, we have a question here. Would you create a comic where the Muppets meet the Turtles?
Hmm. Well, um, I couldn't do it. I could do it, but then we couldn't print it because Universal and Disney don't play well together. But
Oh,
it's a great idea, you know. I would love to do it. I would love uh, to work on both of those franchises. Um, the and certainly, the Turtles work with anybody, and the Muppets work with anybody. The Muppets, the Muppets are great at parodying anyone, and certainly, come on, Teenage Mutant Ninja Frog has a great sound to it,
oh,
and Piggy's got the karate chops down anyway. So,
oh, definitely. And just the interaction with April alone, it just makes my brain
oh,
go
that would
a
be
little
very interesting,
crazy.
especially if Kermit got smitten with
Oh,
it.
and he might because she is
Ooh,
cute.
she is cute.
Okay. Well, maybe, a few one-off con sketches might not be a bad idea for you for some charity work anyway. So, is it easier for you to draw something for yourself that you're working on, or is it easier for when you're doing it for other people or have a project? All
Um,
things.
I'm almost never drawing something for myself that would be a finished piece. Anything that I'm drawing for myself is me just doing warm uppy things, working on a technique or, something along those lines. I basically, besides doing figure drawing, uh, I don't really draw for myself. And the main reason is I don't, my real interest is making sure that um, I always have all the work that I'm supposed to do for the public done. And gratefully, I'm always incredibly busy. Now, certainly, while I'm going about, doing all of the work for everyone, I'll throw in, certainly drawings that weren't asked for, different characters and stuff that haven't been asked for yet. But they're drawn because I know that they'll sell, that it's going to make somebody, happy. And uh, so I don't draw particularly for myself. If I do, it's a gift for Mary, my fiance, or one of the kids, or
Right. That,
you
yeah, yeah.
something like that. I don't have like some secret pet project or a painting or anything. I've kind of never been that guy. Um, my creative flow that way, when I'm sort of noodling around, is more to walk away from the drawing board, grab the guitar, and mess around with that and see if I can, because with that, there's not the pressure. No one's asking for, for an album immediately, whereas I've always got a big stack of, projects to do, between the cons and new production stuff and commissions and all that.
Very good.
Yeah, it's so weird. People go, "What do you do in your spare time?" And I'm like,
I
"What do you
don't have any.
draw? What do you draw for you?" And I'm like, "Hmm, let me go on the golf course, and I'll let you know." It's like if I have a moment to get away, I do. You know,
Fair.
because my days are long. Man, it's so cool to be 66 years old and to be so busy. It's so incredibly cool to me.
Oh, I think we have another question. How did you get into designing some of the minor league baseball team logos? And are you a baseball fan?
Giant baseball fan, Red Sox Nation, Ted Williams, greatest player of all time. Name me a better hitter. Trick question. Yeah, giant baseball fan. I love sports, but baseball. I got into creating baseball logos because uh, so I had hung out in the minors a lot, and it always struck me to be stupid that that there were no uh, there were no logos for the teams. Like if you were, for instance, so in at the Bristol Red Sox just had a B. If you were the Reading Phillies, instead of the P being the P that's on the Phillies cap, they would just sort of turn it into an R. You know, and there was nothing going on. Even if they had a mascot, the mascot like certainly wasn't anything. And I was like, well, this is stupid. And these teams have fans. And so I was trying to figure out a way to talk to Major League Baseball or to anyone about anything when just sort of out of the blue, I've been working on the Tiny Dinos. I have this characters called the Tiny Dinos, and they were big in children's books in the 80s. And then I had made a deal for publishing and stuff like that over in Tokyo. So I headed over to Tokyo to work on this stuff. And while I was over there, I was approached by Sony to talk to them about creating a character for a new Japanese soccer league. This is late 80s. And anyway, so I chatted with them, and they wanted me to draw this guy, like that was sort of like some sort of a mythological god of soccer. And I said, no, we want to make him a cute animal. And I said, because then an animal appeals to everyone. I knew this. I was very much, a child of 70s and 80s in licensing. And I was a licensing person. And I had run licensing for a lot of companies, including Jim and, stuff. So I'd done a lot of licensing work. And I said, no, you want to create a character that's beloved by everyone. And, so I started making up this character that was sort of like a rabbit. And anyway, and then I explained to them the whole concept of like the style guide that, Mickey Mouse, there's many, many pictures of Mickey Mouse, and then you can choose all these pictures. He has many moods, many emotions, Kermit the Frog, da, 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 da. And the Japanese people were just like, what? Like, what? And to my, but I was like, I hadn't worked in sports before. I was just taking what I knew about character design and creation and walking over there. And they went, okay. And so I created this character, Pal Chan, who has been around for 30 years now with Shimazu S-Pulse. And every year he's in the top 5 mascots. Anyways, so I come back from Tokyo. And my buddy, Charlie Eschbach, who he and I were the same age, he was the general manager of the Bristol Red Sox, and now he was the commissioner of the Eastern League in baseball. And this was, I don't know, about 1990 or something. So I go over to Charlie and I have this idea. I go, hey, why don't I create logos for these different teams, the Hagerstown Suns and da 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 da. And he goes, this idea is brilliant. Hang on to it for a year or so. I'm retiring as commissioner, and the league's going to expand. The major leagues are expanding. We're going to get 2 new teams, and one of them is going to be in Portland, Maine. And I went, okay. You know, I'm the president of this team up in Portland, Maine. Okay. So we didn't know we were going to be the Rockies and the Marlins when it finally came out, and we wound up being the Marlins. But anyway, Charlie and I were really good buddies, and we had basically grown up together in baseball. He let me do basically anything that I wanted, and he and I talked a lot. And anyway, so Slugger the Sea Dog was born. The Portland Sea Dogs happened, and it blew up. We sold more Portland Sea Dogs caps than the Yankees were selling Yankee caps. It was the number one thing that year, and it all over the place. And so, and I was the only person to. And Charlie was the greatest guy to work with because Major League Baseball had all kinds of antiquated rules, which is all me for them, right? And they were saying, oh, like a designer can't own a copyright or get a royalty or anything like that. You can't work with anyone outside. Everyone has to be from this office and da 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 da. And Charlie was going like, let's pretend we don't know any of that. And then we're just going to submit it in. And by the time they came around to telling us what we were doing wrong, we had already had selling so many caps out of Baseball America and the Sporting News that they couldn't say no to anything. And thank you, Charlie Eschbach. God bless you in heaven. We had so much fun, him and me. And after that, it was like, wow. I mean, the doors, like everybody in baseball, like wanted to hire me. And I worked for quite a few of them. But I had certain rules that I, wanted to do. I didn't do anything I didn't want to do. And so I had rules and I had a participatory thing, and how I wanted to do things and everything. So I had a real ball doing all of that stuff. And it was great. And the Portland Sea Dogs, they're the only ones that are still around of all the logos that I did. Because, things change and, after 10 years or whatever, they change it out. But we had a great run with everybody and with all the different teams. And so much fun. And Slugger the Sea Dog, they have can you believe they have a Mascots Hall of Fame, like a national mascot?
I did not know that.
I know. Does that sound like a fun place to be or what?
Yeah, definitely got statues. Yeah.
It sounds like, really, you have like the National Slip and Slide Museum, or something. But yeah, they have it. And they never had a minor league mascot. They have like all the famous mascots of baseball and football and hockey and all that, and the SEC and stuff. But they've never had a major league. So anyway, he just got put in. So that was really, really cool. It just happened about a month ago.
Well, that is excellent. And I think really the value of the cuteness you bring to the America's pastime is like a perfect marriage. And
Thank you,
that's very excellent, man. but we are ending our time together. And I just really want to thank you for your time. And artist to artist, is good to hear about another artist doing what they're doing and being very successful at it. And if you want to plug your social media real quick, where you want to be found.
Sure. Anyway, the website is aguyGilchristproduction.com, and there are links to all of the media. But if you type in, Guy Gilchrist, I'm like everywhere. It's Guy F. Gilchrist on Instagram, and I'm everywhere. And thank you so much for letting me be a part of this wonderful, wonderful thing. And I'm hoping that there are many, many wishes that get granted today.
Oh, thank you for what you're doing for One Simple Wish. And again, thank you for making my life a little brighter for the hour. And have a good day, sir.
Thank you very much. God bless. Bye-bye.
Well, thanks. All right.
Boy, that was something, wasn't it? I got to tell you, that was a lot of fun. Thank you both to Trevor, Guy Gilchrist, for taking part in that hour. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to enter into the next hour of programming. But before we do that, I want to thank all of our guests, all our moderators who have taken part during this event that we have for you this weekend. It's been a lot of fun thus far. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and share this with everyone you know. Once again, this is Otherworldly Fundraising. Our fundraising efforts are benefiting one simple wish. Link to donate is located within the description below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, ring that bell so you get notified when those videos go up and they go live. Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Phenomena. Take care, guys.